What if your entire life was built on a hidden truth? For Sylvia, Clario, and Lisa, their world was turned upside down the day they buried their mother and locked eyes with a mysterious stranger. A man of power, a man of pain, a man who was aware of the truth. This is a story of buried secrets, shattered pasts, and a bond that could rewrite their future. Stay with us as we unravel a tale of betrayal, redemption, and the family ties that were never supposed to break. Oh, and before we dive in, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Let's get started. The unexpected news after almost a decade of separation, death of his beloved, pulled him to her grave. The wind howled through Idley Wood Memorial, freezing as Ethan Scott saw his beloved 6 feet under. She had been his anchor, the only soul who ever saw past the tough man of the Wall Street. He was to the world. Now, standing over her grave, the weight of her loss pressed against him, each breath a struggle against the sorrow. Black uniformed mourners surrounded him, their murmured condolences fading into the winter air. But amid the sea of blurry faces, someone caught his eye. 3 little girls. They stood apart from the rest, nearly blending into the stark landscape, their small frames dwarfed by the oak tree they lingered beneath. No older than 9, their features were identical, triplet, perhaps. But it wasn't their resemblance that unsettled him. It was their eyes. Wide, solemn, and far too knowing for children, they watched him with an intensity that cut through his grief like a knife. A silent understanding passed between them, a connection he couldn't explain. His pulse quickened. Before he could move, before he could even form a question, they turned as one, vanishing behind the gnarled trunk of the oak as swiftly as shadows at dusk. And just like that, they were gone, leaving behind only the whisper of the wind. That night, the penthouse felt emptier than ever. Ethan sat in the dim glow of the ceiling lights, the silence pressing him, but his mind was anything but quiet. Their eyes, those 3 girls, lingered like ghosts in the back of his mind. The way they moved in perfect unison, the way their eyes held something unnervingly familiar, the way they had vanished into the crowd as if they were never there at all. He told himself it was fatigue, grief even. But the uneasy truth settled in his ribs. This was no trick of the mind. The next morning, he called the only man he trusted to dig into the matter, Mike Solomon, his driver and confidant for over a decade. A week later, when Mike returned with his findings, the words hit Ethan like a punch in the guts. Sylvia, Clario, and Lisa Spencer were Angeline's daughters. Angeline, the woman who had once held his heart before ambition, had torn them apart. Angeline, who had died months ago, leaving behind 3 girls with Aunt Jenna. 3 girls who were 9 years old. Ethan's breath caught as the timeline snapped into place. 9 years. The exact span since he and Angeline had last been together. She had never told him, never reached out. She had carried this secret, their secret to her grave, raising them alone. And now, those girls. His daughters were out there, somewhere, with no idea who he was. The truth hit Ethan like a tidal wave, dragging him under a crushing boulder of emotions. Shock, regret, and a grief so sharp it stole his breath. He had missed everything. Angeline, a brilliant, stubborn, beautiful woman, had carried this secret to her grave. While he had been climbing the corporate ladder, amassing wealth and influence, she had raised their daughters alone. The thought of her struggling in silence, of those 3 girls growing up without him, twisted something deep in his chest. He remembered their last conversation before he left for France. He had told himself it was the only choice, and love couldn't survive the demands of his ambition. He had walked away, never looking back, never knowing she was pregnant, never knowing she had given him not 1, but 3 pieces of herself to remember her by. Now, the years stretched between him and his daughters like an uncrossable bridge. First steps, first words, birthdays, bedtime stories, scraped knees, and whispered secrets, all lost to him. He had built an empire, but what did it matter when he had failed at the one thing that truly counted? The weight of his absence pressed down on him. He had been a ghost in their lives. Now he had to decide if he would still remain one. First, he approached Aunt Jenna, who got the custody of guardianship after Angeline's uncertain death. She had been the one who took care of Angeline during labor and had been staying with her ever since. Ever since the passing away of Angeline, Jenna had been the mother figure for the three. She took care of them like her own children. He pleaded to meet them without revealing his real identity in front of Aunt Jenna. Sylvia, the oldest one, remained alert throughout the entire time he was in sight, crossing her arms and squinting her big eyes. Clario, a child full of unspoken question, gazed him like a predator trying to read his movements. Lisa, the youngest of three, was the least alert and passed a gentle smile which took Ethan's heart away. The warmth he felt just to see his beloved daughters broke through all the stares he was getting. The girls didn't ask simple questions. "Did you know our mum?" Their voices, perfectly synchronized, carried more than childish curiosity. There was a quiet intensity beneath the words, an unspoken challenge. Ethan hesitated. He told them the truth, or part of it. Yes, he had known Angeline. Long ago, before they were born. But the deeper truth, your mother was the love of my life, you are my daughters, remained locked inside his heart. Too heavy, too fragile to voice just yet. Still, something shifted in that moment. A silent understanding hummed between them, woven from shared grief, unanswered questions, and something deeper, something like recognition. Slowly, carefully, Ethan became a fixture in their lives. He attended ballet recitals, sitting in the back row, clapping louder than anyone. He took them to bookstores, listening as Clario passionately explained some scientific theory, her eyes bright with excitement. And on Sundays, they ate ice cream, always chocolate for Sylvia, who watched him with guarded eyes but never refused the treat. Bit by bit, the walls between them crumbled. Lisa reached for his hand without thinking. Clario laughed at his terrible jokes. Even Sylvia, the most cautious, the most like her mother, began to relax in his presence, her sharp edges softening. Ethan wasn't just a stranger anymore. He was someone steadier, someone warmer, someone like family, even if they didn't yet know why. Time passed through as the visits became his sacred ritual. Ethan spent weeks for the perfect gift for their 10th birthday, something that would honor Angeline while speaking directly to each girl's spirit. Then it came to him, lockets. Not identical, but tailored, just as their mother had once imagined them. For Sylvia, a silver pendant, strength that bends but does not break. For Clario, a sleek oval locket, wisdom as vast as the sky. For Lisa, a heart-shaped locket, love that blooms endlessly. The moment they opened the velvet boxes, the room stilled. 3 pairs of eyes widened, 3 breaths caught. Lisa's fingers trembled as she fastened hers immediately, the metal wire against her skin. Clario traced the pendant over and over, lips moving silently as she reread the words. And Sylvia, stoic, guarded Sylvia, cupped hers in her palm like something precious before murmuring a single, hushed, "Thank you." No grand speeches followed, no dramatic embraces. But in that quiet, something shifted. The lockets became more than gifts. They were promises, fragments of a mother's love, delivered through a father's hands. And Ethan, watching them, felt the invisible thread between them pull taut, no longer fragile, but unbreakable. Soon, the triplets, alongside Aunt Jenna, agreed to move in with Ethan in his new house. His joy was over the roof. Ethan began sketching blueprints for a new apartment, one with rooms designed just for them. When he showed them the plans, they studied him with cautious eyes before laying down their terms. "You don't get to pretend you're our dad. No fancy gifts to make us like you. And no lies. Ever." He agreed without hesitation. Winter came, and with it, weekly ice skating trips. Spring brought homework battles. Clario debating math proofs, Sylvia dissecting his suggestions for her essays, Lisa stubbornly refusing help until the very last minute. Sleepovers meant pillow forts and whispered confessions in the dark. Yet beneath every shared smile, every inside joke, the truth sat like an uninvited guest. Jennifer, her secretary, noticed first. Of course she did. Sharp-eyed and sharp-tongued, she'd been watching the whole fragile dance with quiet concern. One night, as they stacked popcorn bowls after a movie, she cornered him in the kitchen. "They're starting to connect dots, Ethan," she murmured, her voice barely carrying over the girls' laughter drifting from the living room. "You see how Clario studies you when she thinks you're not looking? How Sylvia freezes every time someone mentions family traits?" She pressed a tumbler of whiskey into his hand. "This secret of yours, it's got an expiration date." The ice in his glass cracked loudly as he swallowed. She was right. Some storms you can't outrun. You just have to face them. A year passed by. They were beside the grave of Angeline mourning as wind rustled. As grey light filtered through the trees as the girls stood before their mother's grave, Ethan a half-step behind, close enough to share the weight, far enough to give them space. Leaves whispered across the grass. A year's worth of unspoken questions thickened the air. Then Sylvia turned. "We know." 2 words. That was all it took to fracture the world. "The journal, Mama's confessions, her truths. We found it while moving in with you. You are our dad, right?" Sylvia questioned, as if it reconfirmed the truth. Ethan stood frozen. He braced for anger, for betrayal, for the storm he'd spent a lifetime trying to outrun. But when he met their eyes, he found none of that. Lisa's fingers were laced with Clario's, their grip tight but not fearful. Sylvia stood tall, her chin lifted in that way she'd inherited from her mother, the way that meant I've already decided. "Mum would be happy," Sylvia said, softer now, "that you're here now. Dad." The title landed like a stone in still water, rippling through him. Clario's lips quirked in a half-smile. Lisa's eyes shone. Ethan, who'd built empires with his bare hands, who'd faced down boardrooms and billionaires without flinching, felt something warm and desperate rise in his throat. The wind picked up, carrying away the last of the silence. The girls stepped closer. No more secrets, no more distance. Gone were the days of polished silence. The penthouse, once a showpiece of marble and money, now echoed laughter of a happy family. Ethan woke to the symphony of Saturday mornings, the sizzle of pancake batter hitting the pan, the girls' heated debates over syrup distribution ratios. He'd arrive in the kitchen to find flour handprints on his tailored shirts and not care. Not when Clario would shove a misshapen best pancake onto his plate with solemn pride. Afternoons became adventures. Parks where Ethan, former titan of industry, now stood humbly holding 3 sets of ice cream cones as the girls debated the optimal lick-to-drip ratio. The transformation was absolute. And Ethan, the man who'd measured his worth in stock portfolios and square footage, now kept a different sort of tally. The number of times Sylvia had asked for his opinion on her stories. How Clario's eyes lit up when he nailed the explanation of physics. The way Lisa still sometimes reached for his hand when crossing streets. Redemption, it turned out, wasn't some grand gesture. It was in the mundane magic of mismatched socks in the laundry, of whispered good nights, of being present for the ordinary miracle of their lives. The girls had cracked him open like a geode, revealing colors even he hadn't known were there. And in their light, Ethan finally understood. All the golds and silver in his vaults couldn't compare to the treasure of hearing 3 voices call, "Dad," in unison, each time, every time, like it was the easiest truth in the world. Love and presence can heal even the deepest regrets. What do you think Angeline's journal said about Ethan? Would you have kept the secret like she did? What's a small, everyday moment with your family that means the most to you? Let us know your thoughts on comment section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fateful and reunion stories like this. Until then, stay blessed.